So Roy, let's come back to year 2022 when I first joined Ember and I met you during a summit.
Sounds many years ago, yeah.
Yeah, right? And another company
Yes.
somehow. We, at least myself, I didn't realize the challenges that we will face in our jobs, in our positions, in a bigger company and in a more complex one that we are today. And I wanted to ask you, what's your value that you consider non-negotiable in your work as a CFO?
Value non-negotiable, it's actually easy. It's integrity. This is something not just as a CFO, but I think for all of us is we are honest about what we say. We hold ourselves accountable. We admit to our failures. We lead by example, right? Because we admit to failures and we keep a high bar of high standards. And that's something like, if we screw up on a job, we admit. If something doesn't look right, we dive deep into that to make sure. And if we find a mistake, right away we admit and report and fix it. But we keep a high bar of integrity. For me, that's a non-negotiable.
For me as well, probably that's only the first common value that we can identify in our work. For me, as a general counsel, of course, it's the same non-negotiable and is very much linked to compliance.
Yeah.
And it's a word that nowadays gained more importance than it used to have. And it's a challenge that I'm sure we both have in our day-to-day work in a fast-paced environment as the gaming industry. And not mentioning the many countries we are operating in.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go there into details for the complexity that we have and changing legal environments and so on. And it's even more important to stick to our principles, and integrity is definitely the most important one from which many others derive. So we have the first common ground identified. Coming to decision making, which is a topic that we face every week, if not every day in our work. What's one question you ask yourself when facing a big decision?
Decision.
Ember or for your team or?
It's funny, when I was at Amazon, we used to call it a one-way door decision versus a two-way door decisions. And it's kind of, I think, the framework I'm using. Making a decision, meaning if it's something that we can turn it around and go back, we should make it quick decisions, and being able to make those decisions quicker, or even sometimes, even with Mihai as a CEO, we can do a whiteboard in 10 minutes and make that decision. On the other way, if it's a one-way door decision, it means it's hard to go back. Those decisions will require more time and more analysis to make sure you see it through and all the options and what it means and what is the downstream impact of making that decision if you cannot turn back. And I think that's kind of the first thing that I'm thinking about making a decision. There's other, obviously, things that you think about, like what is the best case scenario, what is the worst case scenario, what is the return on that investment of that decision, what happens if we do it, what happens if we don't. But the first thing I do is is it a one-way door decision or a two-way door decision?
Yeah, I know this very well, and I like it when you always ask this question when we have tough decisions. And I come with another angle, so to say, in this process, and I'm always thinking about the impact that the respective decision that has to be taken by our CEO, of course, and by our executive team. What's the impact of this decision on a long-term basis, and which are the risks, if we can mitigate them? If not, what are the solutions to mitigate the risk and to support the business decision that we all want to take. It's not always easy because usually, right, our job as lawyers, as legal team, is to identify the risks, and that's the challenge. For big decisions, but also for small decisions, like the language in a paragraph, apparently not important in an agreement, but actually it is. It might be very important on a long run when terminating an agreement or so, for example, and it's the same question, which is the impact.
But I really like what you said about the short term versus the long term, because that's something I always also put in the equation, because there's a trade-off, and a lot of times people jump to something that is a short term decision, but it may not be the right thing. For example, for our partners, maybe the right decision is actually to look, employees or partners, customers, is to look to the long term and what's the impact, and not just look for something that is maybe more profitable in the short term, but it has not the best impact long term. So that's another part of the equation in decision making. I think you brought a very good point.
Yeah, and it proves every day, right? I mean, even if it comes with more work or with more, more analysis needed from more departments, not only from ours. And yeah, this is only one of the questions, right?
Yeah.
Let's turn now to a more personal side of us as individuals, and speak about our dream job as a kid. I can tell about myself. I wanted to be a doctor.
Oh, wow.
But the dream, was a short one because I didn't like to see any blood or anything that was related to, sick people or, accidents or so. So I realized I cannot be one. So I had to reorientate myself soon enough.
No, mine is completely different. It definitely was not to be a CFO. That came much, much later. But actually, as a kid, I wanted to be a basketball player. I mean, I was a basketball player, but I wanted to play in the NBA. But to get to a point, I understand you're not skilled enough, tall enough. So found another path. So yeah, but that's...
you find a path that brings, of course, more sides of. I mean, as a sportsman, probably you have a shorter time to enjoy the profession, right? As a CFO, it's a much longer.
That's true. I didn't think that way when I was a kid. I was just like, what makes me happy, and then thinking short term, definitely. So
coming back to present, what's the superpower you would say your team has?
My team, or like in my team?
Like, in your team. Yeah.
I mean, I have an amazing team. I'm very blessed. So, and they are better than me in most areas, and I learn from them hopefully as much as they learn from me. But I think one of the things that maybe it comes with just more experience is, I call it the storytelling, right? It's and it's just the years of like interacting with different groups, different companies, and I think it's not just a CFO; it's for everyone in my team, but specifically for a CFO, I think the storytelling is something that is super important, because you're talking to different audiences, right? It can be investors, it can be board, it can be banks, it can be auditors, it can be employees, it can be finance people, it can be people in other departments, and you have to know how to tell this story, or sometimes to adjust the story, right? And make it simple so everyone understands, and also connect the numbers and the data into the analysis, and then to the story, the so what. Okay, so what does it mean? What it means from decision making, what it means from action items, and I think that's one of the things that I also have a lot to improve, as always, but it's one of the things that I think call it a superpower within my team. So
I can confirm. I really love the way you and your team present the figures. As a lawyer, I don't like figures, maybe only round ones, but other figures I cannot understand without the storytelling behind. So yeah, I could answer it for my team as well in saying that in our legal work in the gaming industry is and in a organization like Ember, which is a rather complex one, operating in so many markets, emerging markets as well. The superpower of my team is that they are able to navigate complex legal topics in a fast-paced environment and work, and being able to translate all these complex issues into legalese, as we call it, right? In a language that all our stakeholders, being internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, understand and are able to take decisions based on our analysis or understand the need for, I don't know, a compliance measure or implementing a procedure internally or, I don't know, for example, having a special language for IP ownership in a rather complex game development contract or stuff like that. And I think that's a superpower because not everyone can do this. It requires a lot of experience in the legal field, but also the ability to understand the business needs and how someone who is not legally trained sees that issue, and to be able to translate it so that he or she can really understands what you are.
I think if one other thing, superpower I see is like in our profession, both finance and legal, it's easier to say no, right? Because it's a risk. But what I like is like I see sometimes that you can help us manage that risk and say, okay, here's what the law maybe say yes or no, but here are the things that we can manage the risk. Here's how we can, assess the risk. Here's how the actions we can take to do that. And I think it helps us as a business, to move forward while we quantify this risk, manage that, and obviously make better decisions with that.
Yeah, that's something that I personally learned in the Big Four environment. Not only to speak about legal risks, but also to be able to explain the probability of the risk, and that's something you as CFO know much, better than us lawyers. But I've learned that it's important to translate our concerns in this kind of language. So yeah. I have a funny question, I guess now. What's your most used phrase in emails?
Used phrase in emails?
It's funny because I have a funny answer, but I let you go first.
It's probably cash is king. They know when I say it, I send a message usually because, but it is, I guess, for us, I mean, obviously cash is always important, and sometimes, people look at other things, and at the end we need to get to the fundamentals. So I think that's one that probably I'm using. Other than maybe thank you in an email, that's probably the most common one. But other than, I think something more specific to finance, cash is king.
I have a funny answer here because everybody expects from the legal team, generally speaking, when they send a request and they say, okay, this is right or wrong, I don't know, or do you agree, or is it okay to sign or not? And the answer comes from legal, and it's not, just yes or no, it's half a page or, okay, 2 paragraphs, let's say, but it starts with it depends. It's not a yes, it's not a no, it depends, and then the arguments come. And of course, we give a solution. Like you said, we always try to find a solution that mitigates the risk, the legal risk, if we identify any. Usually when a request comes to us, there are also risks to be addressed. So yeah, this is the typical lawyer's answer. It depends.
It's funny. It's not just lawyers, right? I think the famous story, I think it was President Truman who said, can I get one-hand economist? Because he said, I had enough with economists tell me on the one hand versus on the other hand. So he said, if I had only economists with one hand, they won't say that. So yeah, it depends. But yes, you need to show a balanced approach and always show the two sides. But at the end, they expect us to come with a recommendation, right? That's kind of the trick is, okay, here's the pros and cons of each way, but at the end, I'm also always challenging my team is like, I want you to feel ownership. So you tell me what are the pros and cons, but I also want you to tell me what do you recommend, right? Yeah, that's good.
And I really appreciate that we and our teams generally, we are really aligned on this.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
I think it's essential in an organization that our functions are aligned. For the decision-making process, it's a big advantage.
Yeah, finance and legal are attached at the hip, so yes, that's good.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
basically this was...
Oh, this is fun. Like